Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Dre again, and today we're going to talk about everybody's favorite topic, hate crimes. Well, more specifically, hate crime hoaxes. Um, if you don't know what a hate crime is, let's have a look. So, according to the FBI, a hate crime is a criminal offense against a person or property motivated in whole or in part by an offender's bias against a race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, or gender identity. Now, obviously, to attack somebody is wrong, period. Um, you know, maybe even more so if it's fueled by your racism or bigotry or whatever it is. um there's really no excuse to ever really attack someone. I mean, unless you're defending yourself, then by all means hook off. But attacking people and their property is wrong. And a lot of times it's fueled by something very, very ugly inside of a lot of people. Now, my issue is with once again with the media, mainly because they like to really stoke the flames and get people riled up over any sort of violent crime or destructive crime, and they want to jump on any opportunity to tie that to some sort of racist motivation or a sexist motivation, or whatever it is, because that's like I've discussed in a previous video. That type of anger translates into clicks and views, and eventually into dollars. So they want to play on people's hatred and fear of other groups. But there are a lot of odd things that they do in their reporting where something will happen. Perhaps it was racially motivated, and they'll report on it on TV and the 24-hour news channels, and they'll do the report, and then they'll bring on a panel of people, and they'll all sit around, and they'll just basically just speculate, and they'll talk about why what group or sex, usually white and male, are evil, and how just simply existing as white or a man is somehow contributing to an atmosphere that encourages hate crimes to occur. But what I notice is absent is the follow-up reporting when a lot of these so-called hate crimes turn out to be complete bullshit. And they'll cover their bases by just kind of posting a blurb on their website or on Twitter, or though they may mention it briefly, as they're switching between topics, but they won't have the same panel on to discuss the media's tendency to just immediately start assuming the worst about people, and then the countless speculation that follows throughout the day and then following days and weeks. They won't address that. They'll just kind of just throw it out there just to say that, oh yeah, well, we corrected our error, and then they'll just move on to the next story, which is probably more of the same shit of them: why you should hate white people, why you should hate men, why you should hate straight people, why whatever it is. So I figured I'd highlight some of these instances of hoaxes. The first one that comes to mind, and these are relatively recent. The first one that comes to mind is a waitress who was working at a restaurant in New Jersey. And I'll just read what the little snippet says. It says the waitress, a former Marine, claimed the couple stiffed her. Like, you don't stiff a waitress on a tip. That's like if you go out to eat with somebody, and it's sort of understood that you'd be splitting the cost, and then one person says I gotta go to the bathroom, and then they leave. That's stiffing the other person with the cost. But if you don't get extra money for doing a job you're already getting paid for, that's not you getting stiffed. And yes, I understand a lot of waitresses don't make a lot of money because they get tips, but whatever. I'm getting sidetracked. Anyway, so this former Marine claims that this couple stiffed her on a $93.55 bill and left a note saying, "I'm sorry, but I cannot tip because I do not agree with your lifestyle." The receipt allegedly said, "I'm sorry, but I cannot tip because I don't agree with your lifestyle and how you live your life." But her tale of prejudice began to unravel after the unnamed diners came forward with receipts showing an $18 tip and no nasty message. So for whatever reason, this despicable person wrote up this receipt herself. Maybe she's desperate for attention. I mean, we are in the age of social media. It's not unheard of that people will go through great lengths to get attention. The purported incident created a media firestorm, with well-wishers sending Morales at least $3,000 in donation through a PayPal account. Morales claimed she sent the proceeds to the Wounded Warrior Project, but the group said it hadn't received anything. So basically, she cried wolf, and she tried to profit off of the sympathy of good people that felt bad that somebody would leave a nasty note. Turns out nobody left shit. In fact, the people left a tip, and then she scammed these people out of their money, saying that it was going to charity. And then what did she do? She bought some fucking hair and nails, paid some bills, was eating good for a month. Fuck out of here. The next person, this chick, basically, she went to a protest, and I guess it was, like a majority black protest, and she created a fake Twitter account, pretending to be basically white people or a white person, using racial slurs and then threatening black people and shit like that. And then she got found out. I'll read the snippet. A university student received a 90-day county jail sentence along with 5 years probation and must pay over $82,000 in restitution for making threats against black students at protests she attended with the aim of stoking racial tensions. Kayla McKelvey, a black student at Keene University, pleaded guilty to causing a false public alarm by creating a fake Twitter account that she then used to threaten the very protest she was attending. It's crazy. Yeah, I don't understand what's going on in the minds of these people, because, I mean, when it comes to racism, yeah, there is racism. It doesn't really need to be said at this point. Everybody understands that, most people have some level of, racism in them. We all make assumptions about people based on their race, or women drivers, or what have you. Black people in credit, white people in cheese sandwiches. I don't know. It exists at in some level, and I don't really care. It's just that when you start using your hatred of another group to scare others, to incite, like, riots and shit like that, then it's a problem. Anyway, on with the hoaxathon. This guy basically pretending to be a white guy, and he created an account on some site called Yit Yak. I've never heard of that shit. Basically, he said, quote, "I'm going to shoot every black person I can on campus starting tomorrow morning." University police and the FBI investigated the post, and police sometime before 9:30 a.m. arrested Bowden inside a residence hall on SVSU's campus in Cokeville Township on an unrelated warrant. While inside the residence hall, police called Bowden's cell phone to confirm his phone was the one they believe was used to post the threat. Like, why would you do that? Like, why do you do this shit? Like, people are fucking despicable, and the media completely ignores it. Like, because the victimhood is profitable. On with the gravy train. This guy got drunk, started a bunch of fights at a bar, and I guess he didn't want to go home to his family and friends and have them see that, basically he just got fucked up. So he created this story to make him into this victim to be sympathized with. Says a black University of Iowa student from Naperville lied about being the victim of a hate crime and was actually an aggressor during several drunken fights that began inside a bar. So yeah, he went into the bar, popped a lot of shit, and got fucking wrecked. They ruined his fronts, they busted his eye, and you know what? That's what the fuck you get. Like, man the fuck up. Like, you can't, like, Like, people are so fucking despicable. They can't even take ownership and responsibility for their own actions. I mean, it happens. I've been in fights where I've been the one that started it, and I got my ass whooped, and I just had to accept that shit and then move on and then learn from it. Like, well, maybe I won't do that in the future. That guy can actually fight. Let me leave him the fuck alone. I'm not gonna go home and cry wolf and then just say, oh yeah, a bunch of white guys called me a nigger and beat my ass. Like, come on, man. Next story. These fucking despicable people claim that they were assaulted on a bus by a white person or white people, I don't know. And rather than wait for any investigation to be conducted, Hillary Clinton, who takes any chance that she can get to pander to black people to get their vote, because generally a lot of black people don't fuck with Hillary Clinton because they don't trust her at all. She jumped on it immediately. There's no excuse for racism and violence on the college campus, which is true and was worded, correctly that way. That's a very political thing to say. That way you can kind of distance yourself from it. That way you can show defense for somebody without showing defense for specific people. But I mean, you posted this picture of the following protest, the protest that followed this so-called assault on these poor defenseless women. And everybody at the protest, they all assumed that, well, nobody would ever lie about that because that shit happens all the time, right? Just being black, getting on a bus, you might get your ass stomped by some white people just because that's what happens every day. So they just jumped on it and assumed. George Soros stooge DeRay McKesson jumped on the bandwagon too. Hashtag defend black girls, you Albany. Like, fuck out of here, man. These people, obviously, people like him and people like Hillary, they want to jump on that bandwagon because they're upset, they're passionate, and you can quickly drive views to your websites. You can probably get people to vote for you once they see, oh wow, they're standing up for us. That's our person. This is all about them. These people don't give a fuck about actual victims, which these women are not. I'll read the snippet. It says, surveillance videos did not support the accounts of the young women, Miss Burwell, Alexis Briggs, and Ariel Aguido. Anyway, neither did the statements of multiple fellow passengers. Rather than being victims of a hate crime, the authorities said the women had been the aggressors, hitting a 19-year-old white woman on the bus. And it also says the vilification of these young women is quite disturbing and scary, Mr. Mishler said in an interview. Mr. Mishler being one of their attorneys, of course. I mean, he's doing his job. It's bullshit what he's saying, but I mean, they did receive some death threats, and I don't think that's cool. But understandably, people are pissed the fuck off because a lot of people look like fools for supporting these people. But they shouldn't really be taking that out on them. They should be taking it out on themselves for just jumping on the bandwagon without actually knowing what happened. Let's see. It's another quote that says, whatever the outcome of the criminal cases, Professor Schalk said the events had already served a useful purpose, making white students aware of the subtle slights that students of color regularly encounter. No, what it did was make people aware that these people are full of fucking shit, and there's a lot of people in the world crying wolf. Like, do you see how, like, these super lefty people, they will take anything and they will spin it in a way that allows them to still attack people of a race that they don't favor, usually white people. Like, this is bullshit. Like, these people are fucking liars, and they beat some girl up on a bus. 3 of them beat some girl up on a bus, and this professor is still trying to spin it to make it look like, oh, well, whatever, that white girl just had to get her ass beat so that white people are aware that black people are scared on campus or some bullshit. These people are so fucking full of shit. Anyway, on to the next one. This guy is a gay pastor somewhere, and he went to a Whole Foods and he bought a cake. He had something written on it. I don't know what he had written on it, but he claims that they wrote fag on his cake. He said, when I got into my vehicle, I looked inside and saw they had wrote "Love Wins, fag" on it. Brown said in the vehicle, in a video, you can see it nice and clear. It's also still in a sealed box. As you see, I have not opened up the box yet. Now, responding to this shit, Whole Foods did some bullshit. They said, 1, we call bullshit. 2, we're going to countersue you. 3, here's surveillance video of you buying the cake that you purchased, which at any time you could have looked down and seen the word fag and, didn't do anything about. But the kicker is that the cake that is shown on the surveillance video, although you can't see the actual cake, you can see the box, and the tag for the cake is on top. In another picture, this guy shows the cake in this sealed box with the tag on the bottom, which means it's a different fucking cake. So he went somewhere else and had these people write it or whatever. I don't know what the fuck happened, but that was not the cake that he bought. And I'm not sure why he lied. I'm not sure why any of these fucking people lie. Like, they're just scumbags. Anyway, I'll just read what it says. A Texas pastor caused a public outcry last month after he claimed that a cake he bought at Whole Foods was decorated with a homophobic slur. Jordan Brown, an openly gay pastor at Austin's Church of Open Doors, is now reversing those claims and dropping a lawsuit he filed against Whole Foods after the company threatened a countersuit. So, yeah, he got caught on this bullshit, and I hope his reputation is ruined. I hope all of these people have their reputations ruined. They are not to be believed. Somebody that would go this far just for attention and maybe some money. That's probably what he was trying to. That's probably what most of these people are trying to get out of it. Some fucking money. They're trying to rob people through the legal system. It's just despicable. And I have one more. Actually, I don't. That's our hate crime definition again. So I'll leave that up for a second. But yeah, so you don't really hear about any of this type of shit on the media once it blows up, because it's very clear what they are interested in. I believe recently with the Florida shooting, guy flew in from Alaska, went to Florida to their airport, shot up a bunch of people. He had a full clip, reloaded 2 more times, emptied all of it, and then just kind of put his gun on the ground and waited for police to show up. They took him without incident. And initial reports, they were labeling him a white Hispanic, which is, some new shit that the media invented during the George Zimmerman era. Because they needed to connect this guy to white people in some way. And so they labeled him a white Hispanic. The same thing they did with the shooter. In fact, when they released photos of him, when the media started releasing photos of him, they basically took the photos and they kind of washed out, like they upped the exposure to make him appear lighter skinned, so it could fit their narrative of white Hispanic, when it's just some Hispanic dude that just went in the airport and shot up a bunch of people. But they need to push his narrative of white people being pieces of shit, which is completely insane. I mean, there are people of all races, sexes, whatever, that are complete pieces of shit, and there's a lot of good people too. But when you do this sort of attack on specific groups and you keep doing it, eventually you just lose all of your credibility, and you go under. Like, you can't survive like this. Eventually people smarten up and they realize that they're being played off against each other. And I'm really hoping that that happens more often now, that people realize more often that they're being pitted against each other just so these people can continue to get ratings and money. The politicians do it too, a lot of people, and so many people buy into this shit. And I won't go as far as to say that type of shit is what causes things like the recent kidnapping of an autistic child to happen. But there are a lot of people who get 100% of their information and opinion handed to them by what they read on the internet, from CNN and MSNBC and shit like that, and from the TV, the talking heads on the TV screen, and they're literally told what to think, and they just accept it as fact. And you should never do that. You should never ever do that, especially when it comes to something like a hate crime or any big breaking story in the news. Like, don't immediately jump on Twitter and then jump into the dumbass arguments with people or whatever. Just wait. Just wait. Look into it yourself a little bit. Look into, a lot of these public records are easily accessible. You can find a lot of shit on the internet if you look for it. But when it comes to, information that's harder to come by, you might have to wait for that to be released, and you should wait for all the information to be released. You should wait for the investigation. You should wait before you form your opinion, before you let these people tell you what you're supposed to think, who you're supposed to hate, who the good and bad guys are. Because they've shown that they have little interest in the truth at all. So, just be informed. And don't let people get one over on you. And I hope that seeing stories like this with all the hate hoaxes, that it doesn't really damage your faith in humanity too much, because there are a lot of actual victims in the world, but there are a lot of pieces of shit like these people, and you need to really wait so you can dig to the bottom of this shit to see who's telling the truth and who's not, before you pick a side. Because a lot of these people are just in it for your money. Like, I guarantee all of these people that I just mentioned, they were probably just in it for your money. And I want to take a second just to address, because I'm sure somebody will bring it up. Like, hey, most of the people that you showed, or all of them were black. Well, there are a lot of white people. There are a lot of, Hispanic people or whatever that do this shit too. It's just that, these were just the ones that I grabbed. I was kind of in a rush and I just started clicking on shit, and this is what I came up with. So, I'm not trying to subtly paint some picture here. For a while there was a running joke about, shit happening to white women, and they just blaming it on some random nameless, faceless black guy. Like, that shit happened a lot. Women that ran away, or decided to just dip out on their husband and the kids, or that didn't want to go through with a wedding, they would just run. And then when they would get found later on, like some days or weeks later, they would just say, oh, some black guy kidnapped me or whatever. Or, they would cause some damage to their house. And they would, when the cops showed up, they'd say, oh, some black guy broke in the house or whatever. So, it's everybody. There's a lot of people from every group doing this shit. So I'm not trying to paint some picture here. And I understand that, this is not a one-sided issue. So, hopefully I was able to, shed a little bit of light on some of the odd tactics that the media uses, and a lot of people on the internet just seem to just bite down on that bait, hook, line, and sinker. They take it, and I don't want to be that type of person. I don't want any of you people watching to be that type of people either. I feel like we all become better when we make ourselves better, when we start to think logically about issues, when we take time to consider crimes, the people involved in them, and the effects that it has on everyone else. So yeah, this one will be, I guess this is one of the shorter ones. I'll leave it here, and thanks for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at iStackSilver, PSN iStackSilver. If you like it, please like it, share it, subscribe. That would be awesome. If you really liked it, then consider supporting me on Patreon. If not, that's cool. I'm still going to do what I do, and I'll talk to you again very soon. Have a good one.